Hi readers! Today I'm going to be talking about my least favorite books from 2020. I did go back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do this video because even if I didn't like a book, that doesn't mean that someone else didn't like it, and I don't want to be negative, but someone requested this and I like doing lists right now, so I decided to go for it. So in case you don't know me, my name is Chris. I do 1-minute book reviews, book box unboxings, and all sorts of bookish stuff. I also have some little helpers running around who may or may not make an appearance. I've got some treats here to try and entice them over. Everyone's sleeping right now, but we'll see what happens. So again, I'm not saying that any of these books on my list are bad. Well, maybe some of them are, I think. Sorry. But these are the 5 books that I read last year that I just would not recommend. I don't see myself revisiting them. They all made me feel various levels of disappointed and or angry. I read about 50 to 60 books last year, so 5 out of that much. I think that's a pretty good reading year. I did already do a list of my favorite reads from last year, so if you haven't seen that one yet, I will link it above so that you can take a look if you're interested. Okay, so jumping right into my list of top 5 least favorite books. These are ranked from number 5 all the way up to number 1, being the worst of the worst. So number 5 on my list of worst books from last year is Fire and Blood from George R.R. Martin. And this one hurts me a lot. I read this back in the beginning of 2020. I was so excited when this book came out. I'm a huge A Song of Ice and Fire fan, Game of Thrones, the TV show fan. So every time that George R.R. Martin comes out with a new book, I always get it. And when I heard about this one, I was really excited because I wanted to learn more about the Targaryen reign in Westeros. It was supposed to be all about the early years of their reign. But I could tell very quickly when I started reading it that it's not a typical story. In fact, it reads more like a history book or a textbook. So don't get me wrong, I love a good history, but I already have a history book on the world of Westeros. I have this gorgeous, huge, illustrated history. It says right on it, The Untold History of Westeros. So I wasn't expecting another history book. I was expecting like a story, but that's not what I got. Now, don't get me wrong, this book has amazing details in it about the Targaryen reign. It's got amazing artwork in it. Like, there's a lot of things about this book that are really, really good, but it was not what I was expecting, and so for that reason, it made my list, because I was disappointed. I was disappointed about like one chapter in when I realized what it was, but I kept reading to the end and I continued to be disappointed along the way. So maybe it was my bad for expecting something different, but it doesn't change the fact that I was disappointed, so that's why this book is number 5 on my list. All right, so number 4, this one is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but number 4 on my list of least favorite books from last year is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. So I had heard so much about the Caraval series, and when I read the first book in that series, Caraval, I was really excited. Caraval did not disappoint. It had great characters, a great story, a great world. But then I started reading the second book, and I felt like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me. This book switches characters from Caraval, and one of my least favorite characters is kind of like the main one in here, so that I didn't really like. And then all of a sudden, there's all these like completely new beings, new characters, new places, and I don't think there was set up for any of that in book 1. So I kind of felt like, where is all this stuff coming from? Like, why is it here? So I feel like they basically pulled a few characters and concepts from this book and plopped them into like a whole new world in this book. And I was not ready for that. So yeah, I didn't really like that. I feel like these 2 books don't even belong in the same series. Like, this one is about, a girl trying to save her sister in this magical carnival, and this book is about a girl like battling angry gods that are getting loose from card decks and like weird crap like that. So unfortunately, this one was a disappointment for me. Now, I will say that by the end of the book, the main character who I didn't like, I did come around to sympathizing with her more. So, you know, that's, I guess, a 1+ for this book. And the final book in the series, finale, was better than this one. So at least the series ended on a little bit of a high note. But it doesn't change how annoyed I was while reading most of this book. So unfortunately, this landed as number 4 on my list. Sorry, I know a lot of people love this series. And like I said, I did love the first one. And the second one I liked. I mean, the third one I liked, not loved. But this second one, yeah, it didn't do it for me. Eek. All right, so number 3 on my list is Roadwork by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. So again, this is one of the 4 Bachman books that I've read this year. I've talked about them a lot on some other videos on my channel and on Instagram. One of my favorite books of the year, if you saw that video, was in here, The Long Walk. But unfortunately, Roadwork, this story, was awful. If you didn't see my review of this one, it's basically about a guy who's losing his home because there's a new highway being built through his neighborhood. And it sounds like the type of thing like you'd feel bad for this guy about, but unfortunately this guy, the main character Dawes, is just so unlikable that it's really hard to feel any sympathy for him at all. He's just not a nice person. And I get that when you lose everything, you might become angry and, you know, jaded and all that stuff. But he just makes bad decision after bad decision. He shows no remorse for any of his actions. The way he treats people is awful. It was hard for me to feel any sort of sympathy with him whatsoever. He's just a horrible person. I really didn't care what happened to him at the end, which made reading this book, you know, less than enjoyable. So I would definitely not recommend this book for someone that's looking to get into Stephen King. Definitely start with The Long Walk or one of his better stories, because Roadwork was not fun. Sorry. All right. Number 2 on my list of least favorite books of the year was Inkdeath by Cornelia. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. If it's funky, if someone knows how to pronounce it, please tell me in the comments section below. So this is the 3rd and final book in the Inkheart trilogy. Oh, hold on a second. Snowball would like to say hello. Say hi, Snowball. Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming to say hello. I have to give Snowball a treat now because she came to say hello. Here you go, Snowball. Oh, there we go. You got it. So anyway, Inkdeath is the 3rd and final book in the Inkheart trilogy, which is a middle grade fantasy adventure story. So this is another case where I absolutely loved the first book in this trilogy, which was Inkheart. But then after that, these books get progressively worse and worse, in my opinion. The series starts with a young girl named Maggie, who's like a big reader. She loves books. She has this great relationship with her dad, Mo. I did think it was a bit odd in the first book because it's for young readers that most of the characters are actually adults. Like the only young person in the story was Maggie and like one other boy. So by the time we get to Inkdeath, though, Maggie is barely in this story. Like, she is the main character in the first one, and she's pretty much the main character in the second one, maybe kind of split, and then she's barely in this one. Like, I don't know why they did that. She was kind of the only character I really cared about, so the fact that she's barely in this story was really disappointing. And because I said, like, there's so many adults in this story, and because this book is for young readers, like, it doesn't take the time to, like, really explore the complex relationships and nuances between, you know, adult relationships. Like, for example, there are romantic relationships that are hinted at, but they're never really said out loud and never explored, so you don't really know, like, how they happened, if they happened, how deep they were, how people feel about them. No one ever talks about them. So, I mean, if you're going to focus on the adult characters, that's fine, but then do that in a deep and meaningful way. And this book did not do that. So everything in this book, from the characters to the villains to like the world building, is just very surface level. So this is another series that started off very strong, but unfortunately ended in a big disappointment, which is really sad. You want your series to end on like a high note, not a wah, 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 low note. So that is number 2. All right, so my number 1 least favorite book of this year. Some of you, if you've been following me on Instagram for a while, may remember me talking about this one. If not, it is Cursed by Thomas Wheeler. Well, it's written by Thomas Wheeler and illustrated by Frank Miller. And that was the reason I was most excited for this book when I saw it, was because of Frank Miller. If you don't know me, I'm a big comic book fan, and Frank Miller is very famous in the comic book world for his artwork. He has a very distinct black and white style that he uses in all of his comic books. If you're familiar with, like, he did a very famous Batman comic, The Dark Knight Returns, which kind of took Batman in a deeper, darker tone, which is kind of the basis for, like, all his movies. But anyway, I was super excited for this book because of Frank Miller. And unfortunately, this book was awful. I'm calling it, it's awful. I think I also tried to watch the Netflix series, and I watched about 1 episode, and I also thought that that show was awful too. It's pretty clear after reading this book that the only reason this book was released is basically as promotional material for the TV show. The author, Thomas Wheeler, is a TV person. He's a producer. He's done some other shows. I don't know them off the top of my head, but they are listed in here. So normally you would get like a show and then maybe a book later on, or you get a book and then a TV show is based on it. But these came out at the same time because they were supposed to complement each other or promote each other. And that's basically what it feels like. It just felt like a promotional material, not like a book at all. So I did a whole deep dive into all the issues of this book, the characters, the plot, the world building. So if you're interested in hearing that, it is non-spoiler, but it is longer than a minute. I'll link it above. So for now, I will say that the world building they try to do makes no sense. The characters are surface level at best, inconsistent at worst. The villains are pathetic, typical mustache twirling, nothing interesting about them. The plot is both simplistic and convoluted at the same time. And again, this is a prime example of a book that is clearly intended to have a sequel because it ends with so many, like, cliffhangers and unanswered questions that it's just unsatisfying. Like, there's characters that have multiple chapters in this book who do absolutely nothing, like nothing, because they're clearly saving them for, like, a future story, which I hope never happens because I can't imagine buying a sequel to this because it was not a good book. So, like I said, it was a shame because I do think that the concept of the story was interesting. It's just, it was not executed well. So, great concept, executed so poorly, and that is why it is my number 1. So, again, yes, I did a deep dive into all the reasons if you're interested. Just saying that again. So anyway, those were my 5 least favorite books from 2020. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up so I know to make more lists and or ranking videos. I want to know if you guys read any books last year that disappointed you. I am not someone that DNFs or does not finish a book, which I know a lot of people are, so I stick it out to the bitter end, even on this book, which I did not like. So let me know if you read any books below. Let me know if you read any books that you didn't like in the comments section below. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I am releasing new videos every Sunday and on Wednesdays, and sometimes a surprise one in between. So all right, readers, I hope everyone has a sparkling day and happy reading. Bye.